Hi guys, how are you all today morning? Good morning. Today is 26th October 2023. My name is TSV Raghavan and this is my spiritual vlog on YouTube. Hardan 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 Haribol TRSV nectar NECTAR nectar. In this particular vlog, in all my previous videos, we have been discussing about the knowledge and information that we have gleaned through the study of spiritual books, scriptures, contemplation on the material universe, and meditation on the spiritual universe. This particular video in this vlog is no exception to that rule. In fact, it is a mere continuation of all that we have been doing in all my previous videos. Kindly subscribe to this vlog and press the bell icon so that I may keep reminding you of all my previous, present, and future videos. Hence, let us continue with the topic of discussion for today's video. In the past few videos, we have been talking about the three factors that decide on the achievement or otherwise of any human living entity in this material world, whether he or she is a male or a female. These factors, according to the great French Emperor Napoleon Bonaparte, are necessary for every human living entity, whether male or female, to achieve his or her purpose and greatness in life. These three factors are: first, limitless ambition; second, ceaseless industry; and third, the determination to succeed. These three factors are necessary to succeed in any lifetime by any living entity, whether male or female. So we must keep this in mind and proceed further in our pursuit of our respective goals in any walk of life that we are proceeding towards or pursuing as per our own destiny, karma, taste, preferences, whims, fantasies, etc. This has to be kept in mind by us viewers before proceeding into this. We have seen in times immemorial that all of us who are interested in knowing about great people of any particular walk of life, that those people also kept these three factors in their mind before achieving something in life. Either they did it deliberately or otherwise, knowingly or unknowingly, advertently or inadvertently, by default or by design. This all depends on the respective destiny, karma, superconscious memory, ego of different types, especially false ego, intelligence, cerebral faculties, experiences, maturity, and genius that possess them or otherwise. In fact, it is certain that when one ordinary person with talent for a particular walk of life decides to pursue that particular walk of life, sooner or later there is a possibility that genius will possess that person's mental faculties. As it is said, talent is what we all possess, but genius is something that possesses us mentally. What is genius? It is the transcendental, celestial, extraordinary power that possesses our mental faculties and makes us work accordingly to achieve our purpose in any walk of life. In this process, beside giving an introduction, we also talked about some case history that authenticated this particular theory. Before proceeding further, I would like to tell you about my own experiences and observations which were authenticated during my watching some particular enlightening motivational videos and my own contemplation. I got a stroke which left me paralyzed in the year 2015. At that time, I got so distraught that I wanted to end my life. However, thanks to God's grace, I hung on, and at that time I was thinking about why this was happening to me. I did not know then, but I had in my superconscious mind a feeling that a part of me had left for its heavenly abode in the year 2015 on March 14th, 2015 when I got this stroke, and that only one part remained here for some reason. I felt that God had given me a second lease of life to achieve something that I had been craving to achieve in my past few births. I initially thought that my soul had already vanished and that another soul had come into this body of TSV Raghavan and it was making him to do this. But when yesterday I watched one video, I came to know about the difference between the soul purpose and the life purpose of any human living entity, whether male or female, who comes into this world in any lifetime. It is said that when a person is born, he or she comes with two types of purposes. One is called soul purpose and the other is called life purpose. Actually, these two complement each other. Sole purpose is something that is given to a person for him or her to use according to his or her whims, fantasies, tastes, preferences, cerebral faculties, experience, maturity, and foresight, etc. Whereas life purpose is used to live any lifetime by any mundane living entity. It is a fact that when a person comes to know at last about his or her sole purpose, only then that person starts thinking of how to complete it. Before that, every mundane living entity is living this life according to his or her life purpose. Further so, it takes time and it takes time for this sole purpose to first of all get visualized in the psyche of that particular living entity, and then it takes time for that person to strive to achieve that sole purpose, and it takes time for him or her to ultimately reach his or her sole purpose bull's eye. In my case, probably the psyche within me as a living entity had realized about this sole purpose long back. According to one tarot reader, I belong to the category of those souls who are very old in this earth or in this terra firma. They have been here for times immemorial. They have had more births and deaths in this particular terra firma than that of other average souls in this world or living entities in this world. Hence, after a couple of knocks, I ultimately realized that I had one life purpose as well as one soul purpose. Probably I began striving to achieve that soul purpose long back. However, in this birth, my life was designed in a manner in which the Lord decided that I should live my life purpose for my first 56 years and then get a stroke and a paralysis where that part of my living entity which has completed its life purpose must leave this world, whereas one part of me must remain here for me to achieve my sole purpose. Only God knows whether I have succeeded a bit in achieving that particular purpose and how. He will be the person who will tell me when I die whether I reach some particular distance in my path towards soul purpose. We shall take a detour in this knowingly or unknowingly, advertently or inadvertently, deliberately or otherwise, by default or by design, I came to realize about my own sole purpose long back while I was being born in this world time and again as a human living entity. Hence, God decided to give me one chance to strive towards the path to achieve this sole purpose. I had been doing this for a very long time during several births and deaths. But here we will talk about one particular case history which will give us a reason or an authentication to the three factors that determine the achievement or otherwise of any human living entity in this world while achieving his or her life and soul purpose. So here we go. It was in the 70s of the 19th century in Madras province of India. India was under the British colonial rule at that time. There were several movements which were against Britain ruling this country as a colonial ruler. Among these people who revolted against the shackles of slavery under the colonial rule were a couple of very erudite, educated, and brilliant lawyers who were practicing in the court in Madras at that time. These people winced against all the rules, regulations, procedures, etc., and policies that were being imposed by the colonial rule on the judiciary of India at that time. Probably these policies, procedures, rules, etc., did not suit the Indian mentality. To revolt against this, one couple of bunch of lawyers from the court in Madras decided to do something about it. This is known as ambition. This particular bunch of lawyers had two guys at the helm. One's name was Mr. Subramania Iyer, and the other was one Mr. Veera Raghavan. This bunch of lawyers or disgruntled lawyers decided to launch a newspaper called The Hindu. This particular newspaper, which was initially a weekly against the system, was launched in the year 1878 under the joint helm of Mr. Subramani Iyer, Mr. Veera Raghavan, and a couple of other lawyers. This particular weekly became so popular among the local Indian population that by the time it was 1882-83, it suddenly became a daily newspaper. As mentioned before, this newspaper was christened The Hindu. This paper started gathering clientele and circulation in the years to come. This went on during all its lifetime till it came to the beginning of the 20th century. This newspaper was doing very well till then when some differences cropped up between Swaminathan, Veeraraghavan, and other lawyers. These differences were according to the ideas, opinions, thoughts, and other such policies of these individual lawyers who wanted their own way in running this newspaper. When this struggle and strife got louder and louder among these lawyers, there were several volatile board meetings among them, and then it was ultimately decided that this newspaper must be closed down for good. Here again, we will take a detour. These young men, these young lawyers, were ambitious, they had worked very hard, and they were determined to succeed. But alas, they wanted to succeed individually. More so ever, they were all getting on in age. Probably they had their own ideas, thoughts, opinions, etc., and they wanted to put forth all those ideas, etc., in their own special way. Anyway, they decided to close down this mouthpiece called the Hindu, a daily newspaper which was gaining in circulation day by day, locally and within the country. At that time, because these people had long been interested in running this newspaper, they ironically hired one legal consultant and tax consultant for their own paper. This person was a very successful practicing lawyer in the Madras court called Mr. Kasturi Rangan. Mr. Kasturi Rangan was younger than them, but he was from a very affluent, rich landlord and property holding family. These people had been quite wealthy years after years. They had no problem financially. When this bunch of lawyers decided to close down this newspaper, Mr. Kasturi Rangan, who was also equally ambitious, hardworking, and was determined to succeed, offered to buy this newspaper from this board of directors of this newspaper. After several rounds of talks, it was decided that this newspaper must be sold to Mr. Kasturi Rangan at a price of rupees 90,000. That was the year 1909. 90,000 then is at least equal to 90 lakhs in present exchange or present inflation rate. That was quite a sum. However, Mr. Kasturi Rangan, ambitious that he had, was also blessed with one extraordinary vision, and probably genius had possessed him. He purchased this newspaper from that board of directors for a price of rupees 90,000. When the family of Mr. Kasturi Rangan came to know about it, it blew its top and threw a fit. The members of the family were so enraged by what was considered by them as an extremely foolhardy decision that they made Mr. Kasturi Rangan a persona non grata in their own family. The other members of the family put their foot down and told Mr. Kasturi Rangan, here ends your share of property in this particular family. You won't get even one farthing beyond the 90,000 that you have thrown down the drain to purchase this newspaper. Now, if you want to survive, you survive with your legal practice plus this newspaper. No one is going to come to bail you out. Mr. Kasturi Rangan was pained, but he agreed to this proposition. The other family members went their own way. Mr. Kasturi Rangan was also getting on in age by that time. He was already in his mid 50s when he had purchased this particular newspaper. Now, lost and completely at sea and at crossroads while doing this job for which he had no experience whatsoever, he at last approached his eldest sister, who was already married and had her own life and was not a party to the threat given by the other members of the family to Mr. Kasturi Rangan. Mr. Kasturi Rangan went to her to bail him out, not financially, but to at least manage and run this particular newspaper. This lady was kind and she took a pity for her youngest brother. This lady had one adult son called most probably Ranganathan. She ordered Ranganathan to go and help his own younger and maternal uncle Mr. Kasturi Rangan in running this particular newspaper. Mr. Kasturirangan was already in his 50s, whereas Mr. Ranganathan was in his early 20s or so. This guy was equally brilliant, intelligent, ambitious, hardworking, and dynamic. He also had a vision. He joined his uncle in running this particular newspaper and they soon became quite successful in increasing the circulation of this particular newspaper many folds. However, after a few years, when they had run this particular newspaper successfully, Mr. Kasturi Rangan took to the bed because of his own physical ailments. Now it came upon Ranganathan to run this particular newspaper alone. But as they say, when a person has limitless ambition, ceaseless industry, a vision, and a determination to succeed, there is no stopping him or her. Mr. Ranganathan ran this Hindu newspaper successfully while his own uncle was ailing and bedridden. Mr. Kasturi Rangan passed away at the age of 63. At that time, his own son, who was supposed to inherit this newspaper from him, was barely in his early teens. This boy was either a kid, an adolescent, or an early teenager. It came upon Mr. Ranganathan not only to run the newspaper but to become a mentor to this young boy whose name was most probably Narasimhan. Mr. Ranganathan, a very nice and intelligent person that he was, took this thing graciously and he very lovingly, affectionately, and carefully mentored that boy and to make him a boss of that particular newspaper. When this guy, Narasimhan, came to his early 20s, Mr. Ranganathan took him into his fold and invited him to help Ranganathan run this newspaper. In other words, Mr. Narasimhan became a sort of adopted son for his own cousin, Mr. Ranganathan, who was several years older than him, just like Mr. Kasturi Rangan, the uncle, was several years older than his nephew, Mr. Ranganathan. However, the circulation of this newspaper uh, rose manifold, and soon it became one of the newspapers of choice of mainly political leaders, industrialists, businessmen, and the elite of that time. Thus, this newspaper, which had its headquarters in a place called Mount Road in Madras or Chennai, became extremely famous all around the country. So much so that Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru, the first Prime Minister of independent India, gave an order to his own subordinates: please keep the latest issue of this newspaper called Hindu on my table every day. Those people gladly complied. This is because of the complete quality, reliability, trustworthiness, and expertise in reporting of this particular newspaper called Hindu. It always informed the reader about the true facts and it never bet around the bush. It never interest, it was never interested in the frills of press reporting, and it was not attracted towards this 15 minutes of fame that usually some journalists crave for while reporting some sensational news. So much so that over the years, this particular newspaper became not only Indian but also world famous. This is the newspaper which created a turmoil in the business industry when an interview to this newspaper's reporter, Mrs. Malini Parthasadi, created such a problem in the board of the business house of Tata Sons that its own very senior, iconic, legendary Mr. Rusi Modi was ultimately relieved of his own post as a managing director of one of the units called Tata Iron and Steel Company, Jamshedpur, also known as TISCO. Such was the reliability of Hindu that everyone who wanted to know the facts about any event, whether in business, sports, politics, or any such walk of life, relied on the information given by this particular newspaper all over the country. This This particular newspaper had its headquarters in Mount Road, Madras. Hence, it was called the Hindu, which is Mount Road Mahavishnu, because Hindus have a community called Vaishnavites who are devotees of Lord Vishnu, and Hindu was a Vaishnavite owned newspaper. So the Hindus building was known as Mount Road Mahavishnu. As on date, this particular newspaper, which had started so humbly in the year 1878, has at least 21 outlets in 21 states in this country. All these outlets are having their own printing presses and publishing houses connected to Hindu, and they make or print such their own newspapers according to their local news, which is equally trustworthy and which has truth in it. These outlets include those branches in Kerala, Andhra Pradesh, Karnataka, Tamil Nadu, Haryana, Gurgaon, which is in Haryana, Delhi, and other places in different states, which come to around 21. There are 21 outlets of Hindu as on date. This particular newspaper has become a sign of truthfulness, integrity, and trustworthiness. This shows how anyone who has an ambition to do something, who takes his or her life purpose or soul purpose seriously, and strives ceaselessly to achieve it with a determination to succeed, ultimately achieves what he or she had probably never dreamt about in the beginning. This is all I wanted to say in this particular case history. Kindly let me know what you think of my talk on this particular case history. Please give me your own expert opinions, thoughts, ideas, and views so that I may blend everything together for the sake of the humanity and the society. Before concluding, let me remind you that I am also a published author with Amazon Kindle and paperback. I write on spiritualism, fiction, and assorted subjects. Spiritualism happens to be my favorite subject. Till we meet in my next video, it is good morning from TSV Raghavan.